What's going on YouTube? My name is Bazerath, and today we're going to be jumping into another tier list video. I wanted to kind of focus on what champions are difficult in mid lane as a Katarina main. So this is my personal opinion of what I consider difficult. It might not be the same as yours. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. But I feel like this is a good video. So let's jump into it, and we'll just kind of see what I think I consider, because I'm actually kind of curious once I start thinking about it, how it's going to turn out. I suppose we'll just we'll just go top to bottom, and then that should be the easiest way to go about it. I'm not just going to bounce between all of them. So we're going to start off with Ahri. Ahri, I think, is actually not the worst champion to go against. She's kind of like a Lux, where she can hold her stun or hold her charm. Then she has this huge advantage. She's really hard to focus on. So if you throw a dagger, it lands behind her. She can use her R, dash around, press her E, and basically you're charmed. And then you go through the fucking electrocute combo, and you're more or less dead, and you're running for your life. And then she can just continue to R after you until you're dead. So she is a difficult champion, so I'm going to throw her kind of high to start. Maybe I might throw her in the B, just because of like her mobility. Akali is a 50-50 champion in my opinion. If I had to say, I would say that Akali is maybe a little bit harder than Ahri. If you can dodge her E, you should be okay, but then she has her Shroud, and her Shroud prevents you from throwing your Q at her. And she can go in and out of it, which can make it so that you can constantly lose, or it can constantly cancel your Q, which is super frustrating. If you go in on her, so if you QE her, she will basically just E on top of you, proc her electrocute, Q slow, passive, and then, you know, hit you with the passive, maybe hit you with another Q, R, and then, you know, continue on with that, execute. You could easily fuck up against Akali. She's not impossible. I just feel like if she lands her E, that's like the deciding factor if you've lost the game or not in that type of a matchup. So, Akshan. Akshan is a fucking douche canoe if I ever did see one. He has a he can go invis on you. If they're good with their like rope, I don't know what the button is for it, but the one where he uses the rope to swing. If he's good with that, he can chase you down. His passive, where it's like, I think it's like if he hits you and then he continues to hit you, it like procs more damage. Not to mention he can outrange you. I mean, Akshan isn't impossible to kill. I would actually still almost consider him an A, but I'm going to put him in an S for now, because he can do a lot of poke right off the bat, and he can even stop you from doing anything under your own tower. So he can hit you, back off, hit you, back off. He outranges you. If you go in, he can basically wombo combo the fuck out of you, and he scales really well, in my opinion. He doesn't have any kind of CC, but he can be highly mobile, and I'm trying to think, and then not to mention, like, his passive is just super OP. You know, reviving your team. If he kills you, say you kill them and whatever, he can revive the team if he kills you. I would say maybe he might be a little bit easier than an Akali, but it's the fact that he can poke you consistently early game and force you out of getting your minions. And then the worst part is because his range is so long, all you can rely on as a Katarina is your Q. And that's really shitty. That's a really shitty feeling. The first, like, or the beginning of the game up until mid game feels really bad. You have to, at that point, you can't stay in your own lane. You have to basically farm, giving up a free tower, losing on a ton of minions, and the only way that you can stay relevant is by either Either A, playing extremely safe and taking what CS you can get with your Qs, or you get the opportunity to roam and you get picks. Those are the only two ways you're actually going to be able to make it through on this champion. So, next on the list is Anivia. She's kind of one of those champions where it's like not easy at all. I would actually say Anivia might even be harder than Ahri, specifically because her passive. Her passive, like, I've had many situations where I've killed her the first time. She spawns, comes back, lands a Q, and then kills me with her E or her R, slowing me. Or in that scenario where she reses, I don't get away fast enough, she throws up a wall, keeps me in her freaking snowstorm ability, whatever her ult is, and then the jungler just comes and picks me off. It's an awareness thing. It's really hard to engage. So if I was to go do, Q, E, auto, W, auto, activate the pat or activate the W or whatever, and then once I burn my cooldowns, especially early game, they're really long cooldowns. And once I go in, there's not really a way for me to get out unless I have a minion and I have my Shumpo up, which honestly feels really bad. And Anivia is just one of those champions where it's hard CC and it fucking sucks. But the interesting thing is like I can kill her, but her passive keeps her from completely dying. And then she gets all that mana and all that health back, and then I'm basically down to like a quarter health, and then I can just get picked off if I'm mispositioned or whatever. Annie is another one of those champions where she's extremely short range, but she can just sit on her stun. If you sit on your stun, and then you drop a fucking giant fire bear on your face, it's really hard to fight that as a Katarina. There's not really a way to dodge it because it's an auto click ability more or less. Like if she uses, I think that the way her passive works is she stacks it 4 times, and on the 4th, the next spell that she casts is an auto stun. So if you're auto stunned, and then you have an electrocute proc, and then you have her ult land on your head, you're basically dead. There's no way to fight that. Plus, she gets a fire shield and a speed boost, which also makes it extremely difficult. And then she has a wide cone, which, I mean, all you got to do is aim that at any one of the daggers. You're kind of hooped. Annie's pretty difficult, but I don't think she's as difficult as an Ahri. Because still Ahri's mobility makes her really hard to keep down, whereas her mobility isn't quite the same. She's very short range, but she has that guaranteed stun and that huge burst damage. So it's one of those things. Aurelion Sol, I honestly don't think Aurelion Sol's too hard. I would consider putting him between these two. I'm going to put him in F for now, especially with the rework. He's a little bit tougher, for sure. He has really good ways to escape a fight, but if he fucks up on his E, where he tries to go away, and he cancels that E by, for whatever reason, misclicking or doing a short cast or whatever, he's fairly easy to pick off. The only thing that sucks about Aurelion Sol is later on, he scales extremely hard, so he could easily take out a Katarina. Not to mention you can make him somewhat tanky, I guess, and he's a little bit harder at that point once he gets his Leandries and the fucking scepter that slows. Ryla's scepter? I can't remember which one it is. The one that slows. Then he becomes more of a problem for sure. And then his empowered ult. But I don't think he's overly difficult. I find if an Aurelion Sol falls off, he falls off quick. But he farms really well, so it's one of those things too. Alright. Azir. I might put Azir a little bit higher. I don't think Azir is hard to kill. Just because... like, yeah, he can outrange, he can poke, but see, I'm relatively safe with my Q. He can't do a lot if I'm not walking into him. The problem with Azir is I could be ulting on top of Azir, and he can just press his R, completely cancel my ult, or he can use his R and completely prevent me from basically hitting my daggers. And to me, that's also a problem. Someone that has a knockback ability preventing me from hitting my dagger, which means I have to run to my dagger to reset my Shimpo to get out. And by that time, I could basically say a minion wave would be coming, and I wouldn't be able to E fast enough while it's walking down the lane because I didn't collect my dagger. And it would give the minions time to pile up, and then at that point I could get jungle ganked. Azir can go all in on me. He has a little bit more range, so his knockback could be a serious problem. He has some decent mobility if he's played well. Fucking Brand is absolutely going up into S. The fact that he can spread his damage makes it extremely difficult to do anything on a wave. It makes it extremely difficult to engage on him because he can just EQ you really, really quickly, and then just do his full combo plus like the burn damage, his ult. I find the brands that I go against are extremely challenging, so I want to say that he is an S tier for now, in my opinion. Cassiopeia is not super mobile. I'd say that she's maybe on the slightly easier side. Her ult can slow if she's trying to face you, or if you're facing away from her, her ult can slow you. If you face her, her ult can stun you. But she doesn't really have any stun. She has a lot of like damage, and she has to have the poison on and then use the Q for the top damage. But like, she can't really dodge me. She doesn't have those types of abilities that get her away from me. I can stay on top of her. The hard part is like her damage is a little bit more consistent than mine at the start, especially. But I can say she E's, or say she ults, I can basically E behind her, so making it completely useless. And then once she uses her big abilities, she's kind of hooped. She has a slow, which I can get over. I don't find Cassiopeia to be too hard. Corki, I don't find to be too hard as well. He has some like a lobbing ability where he like lobs like a bomb or a rocket or whatever at you. It's a lot of skill shots. The only part that's difficult is his wide cone for his Q. He has a little bit of mobility, but it's not like long range, and it's not anything I couldn't counter. I feel like Corki is an easier champion, and he has a high skill cap in the sense that 2 of his abilities at least require you to make a skill shot. If you can't make those skill shots, you're not going to be able to. Katarina is really hard to hit, in my opinion. So I think he isn't too difficult. Diana, I would probably put in the D tier. Her ult can be countered by Azonia's, and then her Q and her passive, her empowered auto, after like 3 hits or whatever, can do a lot of damage. She gains a shield. It's a little challenging to go against her. I might even bump her up to a C. She's kind of tough. She has some mobility. I'm pretty sure she can E out to minions just like I can. So she has similar mobility as me. And then I guess if I'm playing smart, I can you know, how her Q curves. You can kind of manipulate that so you don't get hit by it, or you can E out of it or whatever. But she has a lot of engage, and she can keep you in that fight for a long period of time. She has a lot of burst. So I'm going to say she's relatively difficult, but not... She's a 50-50 champ, in my opinion. But I don't think she's as hard as an Akali as well. I think Akalis are just way worse. Echoes are fucking brutal to go against. Echoes, they the Q slow, like the double. If you get hit with the Q, it slows, and then you get hit again when it comes back, and then you get the E auto proccing the electrocute. If he lands his W, he gains a shield, he stuns you, and then his ult, man, you can nearly kill the guy, and then he just presses R, gets away. He's able to jump over walls. He's a very hard champion to lock down. I hate fucking going against Echoes in mid lane. I feel like generally I'm at like a 50-50, I guess. A little bit at the start, 1 through 3, and then like after that, like once he gets his level 6, it's fucking done. But most Echoes are highly aggressive too, and Katarina can't, unless I got like a second wind with a Dorian shield, I'm not going to be able to survive the fight, man. It's just not going to happen. I don't think Ezreal's a mid laner. I don't find him to be terribly difficult, honestly. If he missed, but I'm just going to throw him in here anyway. If Ezreal E's, and he E's to the wrong place or doesn't E correctly or whatever, that's his only out, so it's going to be very difficult for him to get away from me. I can stay on top of him. All of his abilities except for his E is a skill shot, essentially. He has to land his W to empower his Q or his E, and then his ult. But he has like friggin' 3 skill shots in his kit. So unless he's able to land his skill shots, I feel like he's not bad. Fizz, I'd put at a C. I would say Fizz is harder than Diana. I would almost even consider him to be I would almost consider him to be up here. Maybe Fizz can be the new A tier leader at the moment. The reason why I think Fizz is difficult is because I think it's his E is just insane. He does so much damage. He can dodge any ability essentially. And if he lands his ult at full combo, you're essentially dead. And he can go through you, kind of like an Akali. He has a bleed. It's a lot to deal with. You could probably do okay at the start, but unless you're somehow really good at manipulating your W's, so you use your W as he's doing his little prong thing where he sticks himself up in the air. If you can manage to dodge that, then you might be okay, because his cooldowns are a little long, except for his Qs, I believe. He's a very tough champion to stick to. Alright, Galio. Where should I put Galio? Galio's kit isn't... I don't think he's S. And I also don't think he's B. I kind of consider him like an A tier. And that's because he can do a full combo on you if he lands it. So Katarina goes in. All he has to do is like hold his W, I believe. And you're locked in. Then he knocks you up. Then he Qs you. Then he slams you. And you're pretty much fucked. Plus he has a magic shield as a passive. It's just everything that counters a fucking Katarina. And he can also ult away. His ult is an extremely long cooldown. to help his teammates. So he's very tough to even go all in. And I haven't really found a build that actually works against him really well. It's not the fact that his kit is overly complicated. It's just really easy for me to alt and then him cancel my alt. And then just wombo combo the shit out of me. And then here I am pressing E on anything I can just to get away from him. Heimerdinger is another frickin' bullshit champion, probably up here. I consider Heimerdinger a very tough champion to go against because he sets his turrets. So he basically cuts off an entire section of the map that I can use to engage him. His turrets require a lot of damage to get rid of. He has low mana cost, which means he can continually to bring these out, and I'm spending more time hitting his turrets than I would be him. I can't really do a whole lot too quickly to his turrets, which is unfortunate. I think it takes 3 hits to actually knock out the turrets. And then if I was to engage and his turrets were up, he has essentially 3 or 4 different ults, and not to mention his one, I think it's a passive ability, so he gets movement speed around his turrets. But also, if I'm in the turret range and he hits me with an ability or whatever, those turrets will proc essentially a wave beam thing, and that fucking does a shit ton of damage. He has a stun. It's a skill shot, but it's a relatively easy skill shot to make as a Heimerdinger on a Katarina. So I find him extremely difficult. He scales really hard. Okay, so Irelia, I'm gonna put her. I'm gonna put her lower than a Diana. I think her and Diana are kind of close to the same. Irelia, I have a little bit mixed feelings for. I feel like I can actually lane against this champion. The problem is she has a stun, and her passive heals her for so much and increases her attack speed so much, I can't keep up with that. She can mitigate the damage with W. She's highly mobile, and her ult slows and traps you. So unless I have a minion wave or someone close enough to me, I will not be able to get away from her if she lands her stun or she uses her ult. It just won't happen. So then I'm stuck having to fight her, hoping that I'm going to be able to land my W, my Qs and everything, and hopefully do enough damage to the point where it's going to kill her. But more likely than not, her passive is going to keep her alive. She's going to kill me much faster than I can kill her. Usually she would probably carry Ignite or something like that, which would make it even more difficult. She's just a problematic champ. But at least I feel like I can lane against her. Okay, so Karma. I don't find Karma too difficult. I'd probably throw her in the F tier. Maybe E tier. Just because, she kind of reminds me of, LeBlanc a little bit. But the thing that makes her difficult is, she can empower all of her abilities. She can give everybody a shield. She can make her the radius and empower her Q to the point where it does more damage, has a bigger radius. She's and then she scales really hard too if she's played right. Very strong. Karthus, I don't find difficult at all. I feel like I can kill a Karthus no problem. There's nothing in his kit that prevents me from getting to him. Even his his wall that he puts up that slows you. I honestly don't think that can even stop me, because even if I'm directly into it, I can E to him. He has a very difficult time trying to get away from me. He's a super easy champion. Kassadin. He's a difficult champion to play. And I think he's more here as an F tier. He scales hard. His ult makes it difficult for you to get him. But He's also a very difficult champion to play well. A lot of people don't play him well. I might bump him up to like a higher F. I'd say he's a high F just because of how mobile he can be. Plus his passive, giving him his Q gives him a magic shield. He can slow. He can burst you down really hard. Yeah. Depending on the player, I guess. It's very dependent on the player's situation. Katarina's account. Kog'Maw. I don't really consider him a mid laner, but I'm kind of in the boat of Kog'Maw does a bunch of damage, but he's easy enough to kill. I think that he does more damage than Israel. He's a very skill shot heavy champion. His ult isn't too powerful, so I feel like definitely doable, but if you fuck up somehow, like mess up your Shimpo or whatever, he can outrange you. It's just how it is. LeBlanc, I'd probably put right beside Karma. LeBlanc is not a difficult champion to go against, and the two of them play very similar, but she's a high skill cap champion, and she gets her passive, which is interesting because I could save her, and she's highly mobile, so it makes it kind of difficult. Lissandra, I'd probably put as my first D tier, I think. I feel like if I was to ult, she just ults. Totally stops me from doing anything. I'm getting damaged while in it, and then, yeah, she has a good way to get out, low cooldowns. Very strong champion, a little bit of a skill cap, or a little bit of a skill-based champ. And, not much to say about her. I don't fight her too often. Lucian, I would say he is probably... I probably consider him a C tier champion. Yeah, he's kind of mobile, but it's kind of like a short dodge. And then he does a lot of damage. Every ability procs a second. If he gets any kind of buffs from anyone, I feel like I think his passive like improves some of his stats and stuff like that. Scales really hard. He can be problematic. If I can't kill him on the full combo, he could theoretically chase me down and shoot me to death. Engage, disengage, all that, but he's an ADC. I don't find him specifically to be too difficult for the most part. Lux, I know Katarina mains are gonna fucking lose it on themselves when they put Lux as like a higher champion on my list. I'd almost consider her like here. I put Lux roughly around there. I would actually almost even put Lux here. No. This is about right. So Lux, in my opinion, her kit's fairly simple. You can abuse her cooldowns, but holy fuck, every Lux that I go against, they hold their stun and basically land it every time I try to go in on them. Short cooldowns, scales really hard. But one of the worst parts about landing against the Lux is the fact that she can throw her like circle ability, whatever that one is. I don't know if that's her E or her... I think her W is her shield. Her Q is the big circle ability, and then maybe her E or her Q could be switched. Could be the stuff. I can't remember how it goes. But either way, that big circle has such a huge radius, and she can proc it, or she can let it go off. It slows me. It prevents me from CSing. It's really extremely hard to dodge. And then she can also do damage with her auto attack, which procs more damage on top of me. And then, yeah, extremely low cooldowns. She just has to play far back, and if I say go into anybody, she can literally cancel my abilities and lock me down. It's super frustrating. Every Lux I go against lands, they're stunned almost every time. It's really frustrating. partially because Katarina's somewhat predictable, but not really. Ugh. Okay. Malphite. I'd say Malphite's somewhere around here. His ult and Wombo combo is rough. He's a tank. He gets a shield. He can do a lot of damage. He can slow you, depending on what build he has. He can poke you out. He can out-tank you. He's just, he has strong engage. He's super frustrating as a Katarina. You can't just one-shot him really easily. But his mana cost at the start for some of his abilities are pretty high, so he can mana burn himself. So he's about a B tier-ish, I think. Alright, we got quite a few more champions to get through. Malzahar. Malzahar is... I'd say he's D tier. He's super fucking irritating. He probably leads on the D tier portion. He's kind of like a 50-50. Farms extremely well, really difficult, super annoying when you get silenced, super annoying when you get locked down with his ult. He has his passive shield that happens all the time, and he can burn your health down sometimes without you even realizing it. When he last hits a minion, that little curse thing jumps to the next minion, that minion dies, that curse jumps to the next. Well, if that curse lands onto me, then I'm getting burned. It's not something you really visually see too well unless you're really paying attention to it. So with Katarina being such a high-paced champion and you're like clicking buttons, looking all over the place, it's one of those things that you can kind of miss. But I mean, if you do well at the start, Malzahar's not terrible to kill. You could use your allies to break a shield for you, and then you can just go all in. You can abuse the fact that he doesn't have his ult, but it seems like every time you die and you come back, he uses his ult on you again. Completely fucks your game, but definitely killable. Morgana is a fucking butt munch, but again, if she misses her Q, she really doesn't have a lot. Her ult, you can get away from it. Her shield sucks, but I think Morganas are killable for sure. Nico, where should I put you? I find Nico to be kind of annoying. I find her to be a little bit more annoying than... it's a skill shot thing. I feel like Nico is kind of a B tier. Low cooldown on her stun, as far as I know. Has the duplicate ability, can fucking copy herself into minions and make herself look like plants or whatever, so that could be really a surprise. Hard to go against something you don't know is there. And then her ult, huge range, sometimes very difficult to dodge. She has her electrocute procs, which do a lot of damage. Her Q can burst the more time, I think it's like the more minions it hits or the more minions it kills, it bursts and bursts and bursts, which can do a lot of damage. She's really good at like keeping you out of your lane. So she is a B tier. Orianna. I feel like she is definitely someone I could lane against. But I don't know. She's kind of like between here and here. You can definitely kill her as long as she doesn't have her ult. So there's that. High's kind of a decently like a mid to high, like low high or high mid champion to play against. Is she more annoying than Lissandra? I would say yes. I'd say that she's a little bit more annoying. She's kind of around the same spot as Malzahar. So D tier-ish. Pantheon, fuck this champion. His stupid face. Hate him so much. Very very difficult champion to go against. I would say probably somewhere around there, B tier for sure. Uh, you can fight him, but it's like if you, as soon as you go in to throw your Q, you're in range of his E, and then he just wombo combos you. The only way to actually kill him is to get behind him, and if he's doing his little fucking stabby shield thing, then it's really difficult to deal with, especially early game. So yeah, every time you want to go up to Q him, you're in range of him jumping on top of you and doing his wombo combo. So I fucking hate Pantheon. He scales really hard. He builds lethality and shit. So he can fucking kill you super quickly. He has a disengage and an engage. Long range, not long range. You could be hitting the plates on the tower. He could die, spawn, and then just ult back to the tower. And you might get caught out. He also sets up his jungler really well, so he's a super frustrating champion. Fucking hate Pantheon. Kiana, high skill champ, not super difficult. I feel like I could lane against her. Not high range. Dodgeable for sure, but if played well, I feel like her ult can fuck you really hard. Does a lot of damage, stun locks you, can knock you back out of a dagger, can also cancel your ult. So she's up there for sure. Rakan, I don't find to be a difficult champion at all. Doesn't do a lot of damage, or at least I've never played against Rakan that's ever done a lot of damage. He's not really a mid laner in my opinion, but he's here. Really not too difficult to go against. Rise, I would say Rise is definitely the leader of the E tier, and that's because he has a low cooldown stun, high farm ratio. He has a way to get out of a fight. Like if say he's in my ult and I don't kill him fast enough, he can just ult away. He can stun lock me. He can slow me. There's a lot of things that a Rise can do. It's super frustrating, and sometimes if I'm in a group of minions, he can land his abilities off the minions, which automatically hit me. Super frustrating. Rises are pretty tough, but specifically because he has that low cooldown stun. Seraphines are kind of pains in the asses. Let's see here. Let me think about this. I could move the Azir back, and I can move the Seraphine up. So essentially, Seraphine, her ult is really tough to deal with. She gets the shield, the heals, the empowered abilities, high mobility. When it comes to like movement speed and all that kind of stuff, she's not a difficult champion to kill exactly. She is very squishy once you're on top of her, and if you scale well enough, you can kill her. But honestly, I've had a lot of Seraphines kind of completely screw me out of games just because they're really good at what they do. Set, again, top laner, not really a mid laner. I don't find Set too difficult, but maybe a little difficult. And that's because, like, if you don't use your E properly, you won't be able to get away from his W, which does a lot of damage. You have to bait out his pull, which sucks. That's never too fun. What else? His ult and him doing like the alt auto, QQ, auto, EW, or whatever is fucking quite the combo to deal with. He has the ability to, I think, heal, or he heals well, scales hard, and then that shield, man, and his W just packs like such a punch. I know. So I'd say like I could duel him because I could bait out his E, but I think that he's still a very challenging champion to go against because you still have to really consider how you're going to make your plays. You can't just go into him, because as soon as you do, he just pulls you in and you're fucking wham, 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 wham. You're fucking dead. So, Swain, not a difficult champion. Even with his ult, if he doesn't land his E, not super great. You could dodge his E, and you can dodge his Q too. Yeah, very difficult if he lands his E. His W is easy to dodge. His Q is kind of relatively easy to dodge, and his E is relatively easy to dodge. I don't have to be in his ult. So he's not the worst champion. I think he's actually a fairly easy champion. Silas probably can go up a little bit. I'd say a Silas is more difficult than a Cassiopeia. I'd almost consider Silas more difficult than a Cassidon. Very bursty champion, heals off of you, or heals when the lower health he is, if he lands his little stun. Decent mobility, can steal ults, which is super frustrating. So I'll put him at an F for now. We'll see how it goes. Syndra, I'd say she's quite difficult. I'd say she's more difficult than... I find most Syndras are kind of like Zeraths. They just sit under tower most of the time, and then they just keep lobbing abilities with low mana costs at you. But the worst part about a Syndra isn't the balls and her constant spamming of Qs and shit. It's the fact that she can push me out of my ult. She can push me out of my dagger. And then she also can stun me if she sets herself up right. So engaging on her is very unpractical, and don't like it whatsoever. She's super annoying champion to go against. We're getting fairly close to the end of this. This tier list is actually turning out pretty good so far. Teemo, pretty easy champion for the most part. Might be I think Swain is harder than Rakan for sure. I think Teemo is harder than Ezreal, so G tier's kind of looking like this right now. Yeah, Teemo's can scale hard, outpoke you, but the thing is like, is he easy to kill? And how much disengage does he have? Not a lot. Talia, I don't think is super difficult, but she has a way to get away. She can knock me out of my ult or my daggers, and she has low cooldowns and she scales really hard. I'd say she's probably here besides Swain. Talon, he's a fucking douche canoe. I find Talon is up here with Pantheon. His Q is hard to dodge because it's wide and it's a cone. It hits you, comes back, does a lot of damage. Doesn't take much for him to proc his electrocute. Very hard champion to freaking keep in the lane. He's also a very hard champion to do damage to because he can do a full combo on you. Q, E, that hits twice, procs electrocute with his auto. And then the E is the dive, which does a bunch of damage, and then he can just like eviscerate you with his ult, goes invisible. But the worst part is he can roam a lot too, and it's hard to keep him in your lane. And 1 through 3 for sure, he just straight up does more damage than you. So he's one of those fucking, go fuck yourself champs. Hate him. Tristana, I would say is harder than Lucian. Not impossible to kill for sure, but she has a solid disengage at the very least. She has 2. She has her ult and her jump. And that if she kills someone, I think she's kind of like a Kha'Zix, so if she kills one, she can reset it to kill another. I'm pretty sure. And then just lobbing bombs on the top of your head is super fucking annoying. It's just a point and click, essentially. So guaranteed damage. Really sucks. Has high wave clear and does a shit ton of turret damage if she's left alone to her own devices. Scales really hard into the late game. Not a fun champion to go against as Katarina. Twisted Fate. Definitely easier than Karthus. Yes, he has a guaranteed stun with his gold card, but you can dodge his Q. His passive isn't too difficult to deal with. The only thing is I find that, you know what, I might actually bump him up to a G, because Twisted Fates that don't necessarily go AP, but they go attack damage, and they go with attack speed and base everything off their auto attacks. That kind of a Twisted Fate sucks. I would say Twisted Fate can maybe move up a bit. Actually, I even think Twisted Fate can go higher than these guys. I'd probably say something like this would be like a Twisted Fate for me. So, like, not a hard champion to kill, really low ability to disengage, but he can, yeah, he can straight up murder you if he's doing, like, say, an AD build with, like, attack speed. Super frustrating. Varus, not a difficult champion in my opinion. Probably put Varus somewhere around here. High range, but again, he requires a lot of skill shots. I think he burns up mana fairly quickly, and he has to worry about stacking his passive, I believe it is, to proc the additional damage from his Q or his W. I can't remember how it exactly works. It's like he basically like applies these stacks, and then he can burn those stacks by pressing E, which is like his like AoE one, or he can press W and then use Q and then do even more damage. But he's a skill shot champion. Doesn't have any real disengage. I can stick to him pretty hard, burst him down. Not the worst champion in the world. Veigar, I don't find to be a difficult champion, but there are the odd Veigars that are really good at landing their cages or keeping their distance. But the ones that are really dumb, they'll try to cage me first and then use their abilities, not realizing that I can just E on top of them. And most of the time, they'll do that and they'll walk up, or they'll miss their skill shot, which is their Q and their W, or fuck up with their R. But there are a lot of Veigars in the world where they are able to, time their cages really well, place them really well, land their Qs, land their Ws, and so then finishing you off with an R can be a very big problem. But I love going against Veigars because most of the time they're really stupid. They try to cage you first, walk into you to hit you with the QW, but basically screw themselves because I can just E over top of them. So Veigars are not difficult. I love going against Veigars. Vel'Kozes are kind of the same thing. If they miss their Qs, they miss their Ws, or they miss their Es, they're highly skill shot oriented. I personally find that they are not difficult to go against. Their cooldowns are mid-level, I guess, except for the Q, I guess. And they also have to worry about applying stacks to make their ult efficient. And I can get behind them, and they can't turn quickly with the ult. So I feel like I can manipulate that in my favor, bursting them down fairly quickly. We get to the first S+ fucking champion to go against as a Katarina. I fucking hate Vex so damn much. I can't tell you you don't even have to be good at this champion to screw over a Katarina. Anytime a Katarina goes into you, you just hold your fear and you press W. It's a fucking AoE burst that applies fear while it's stacked up, while the meter's full. And then you can just Q, auto, E, auto, and then you also have like the little ghost thing, and she like grabs it from you, which does more damage, and her Q can go through minions. It has an extremely long range. She can hit you with her ult, burst you down that way. You cannot engage her. You cannot farm against her. You cannot poke her out. Like, it's unbelievably awful. I hate Vex as a Katarina main. She's the most frustrating champion, and I'm saying this coming from like someone. I have someone who has watched my streams and stuff, and I started playing Katarina because of this specific person. And typically they're like, "Oh, I ban Yone all the time." No, man, freaking Vex. Vex. I could go against a Yone. I cannot, for the life of me, even if they're bad, cannot go against a Vex. I don't know what it is about this champion, but it's like impossible to play against. Especially because she can get her fear so fucking quick, even early. It's just annoying as hell. Vi is kind of mid-tier. I'd say probably like a C. Not typically a mid laner I would go against. I kind of actually want to put her kind of with Set, maybe a D tier. Her auto target ult is super annoying. Her burst with like I think her Q and then her W is like her shield or something. I can't. And then her E is maybe like the dash punch or something like that. The thing that makes her difficult is she can wombo combo you with her ult, and all she has to do is point and click. It's not a target or an ability that you have to land your shot. It's more or less just click the target, press R, and then you're golden. So not difficult, but at the same time, not easy either. Victors are super passive, but I don't find them difficult. I would say a Victor would be probably somewhere like here, like F tier. Even when he ults you, you can get out of it. You can dodge his empowered E's, I believe. The only ability you can't dodge is his Q. His Q can do quite a bit of damage. He can give himself, like, he can stun lock you with his W. I believe that's what it is. But you don't have to necessarily, I can E out of it. I can basically get out of most of his abilities. And that's why I don't find him too difficult. The thing that makes him harder is the fact that he sits under tower a lot of the time and plays very passive, and passive champions makes it impossible for Katarina to engage, which makes you feel like you're wasting your time. Vlad is fairly difficult, so I would say Vlad is kind of up there for sure. And the reason is like he's a high skill cap champ or skill based champ. Skill based champ, but he has his W, and then he can stay in lane for literally ever. He can just heal off you and heal off you and heal off the minions, and he's really hard to hit because he can go underground and does some damage and then does some burst and then blows you up and then ults you, and then you're like, I don't know if it's called sanguine or what the fuck, but essentially like does more damage. Any damage that's done to you, it's like increased, and then you get like a big giant burst of it, and then he heals off of it. So and that's an AoE as well. So if he's in a team fight, he fucking hits everybody. He's not an easy champion to play against. Bazerath, not difficult. Say very easy, but most Bazeraths I go against are not stupid, and they'll sit under their tower and use their range to their advantage. He's a glass cannon. He fucking misses his stun or misses his Q or misses his W. He's not going to be able to do a lot. He also has his ult, which he would have a hard time hitting me with, so I can E out, W, E out, dodge. Like, not a difficult champ, easy to kill, but difficult in lane because most of them sit right under their tower and outrange you, which makes it like impossible to even fight the guy. All right, I'm getting close. Yasuo is a mid-level difficulty champ. I would say, where would I put Yasuo? I would say Yasuo is I'd probably say Yasuo is like a low B, and it's kind of a weird one for me because essentially he can block my Qs with his wind wall. He can block my ult with his wind wall. He has high mobility when it comes to dodging. He can hit me with his tornadoes, which constantly go off. So it's really a dance with Yasuo. If I can get on top of him, get out, get on top of him, get out. I can make him miss his Qs. I can force him to burn his E's. But the thing is he can mitigate basically my entire kit. He can mitigate my Q and he can mitigate my ult. And the only thing I can relatively hit him with is my W. But he's also one of those champions where if you engage him and you fucking fuck up one of your abilities, then he's going to have the upper hand. He has a high ability to farm fast, high mobility, a really good ult, his passive, throwing his Q out a lot, and then his fucking passive shield as well. Like, constantly getting a shield just because you run in a circle is fucking unbelievably difficult sometimes. He's definitely like a Kali-ish, in my opinion. So he's like another one of those like 50-50-ish champs where it's like you just don't know. I don't even, you know what, maybe not low. I would consider putting him at a low A tier. He's fairly difficult. He has a lot to deal with, a lot to handle for Katarina. Yone, I would say Yone is probably on probably somewhere about here. I don't think Yones are as difficult, but he has that passive where he can dive into you. He has his consistent Qs. He scales basically the same as a Yasuo, but he's not able to mitigate my abilities. He can't stop me from using my kit like Yasuo again, but he also has a lot of boom boom burst kind of fucking abilities, and then he has a shield, good at farming, good at his E can kind of fuck him a little bit, and then his ult is really good at setting up and canceling, and his ult is really good at setting up and canceling my abilities as well. You can use it as a disengage and engage, cancel my abilities. Yeah, he's got some abilities where he has to like actually aim it, but overall not difficult. Again, it's a dance, but I'd say he's relatively difficult. Zed is a fuck you champ, 100%. I would say Zeds can be fairly difficult. I put Zed probably in the Akali range as well. I could be ulting, he just ults on top of me, and then he just gets out. Any damage he does to me is also stacked on top. So really, he just high burst, high damage right off the bat. When you're at a low percentage of health, he does more damage to you. He can keep himself at a range. He can use his shadows to either do damage and proc his electrocutes, or he can use it as a disengage tool. He's a very sticky hard champion to stick to. Super frustrating champion. Fucking hate him. Ziri. Ziri is probably somewhere around here, F tier. She has a way to get away, but using her correctly could be very difficult for some people. Pressing Q, 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 and then using your clicks to proc her bar. And then she has her E to get away, like go over walls and shit. Kind of annoying, but I still don't think she's like the most difficult champion to go against. Ziggs is a fuck you champ again. I would say Ziggs can be super frustrating, super irritating, and super difficult. Not a hard champion to kill exactly, but he has low mana cost, constantly spams abilities, cuts you off, can use his W to cancel your E's or knock you out of your daggers, knock you out of your alt. Huge range for his ult. Does more damage to towers, and let's face it, if Katarina can't roam sometimes, then she's completely fucked. And if you leave him to his devices, he'll just fucking blow up your tower, scale really hard, and he just constantly pokes and pokes and pokes, and he doesn't take a lot of mana. So he just has to sit back like a Bazerath and just fucking throw bombs at you all day, and you can never properly engage the guy, and then you're just kind of screwed. Don't like going against Ziggs. Zillion is a fairly difficult support to go against. His resurrect, his movement speed, his stuns, not hard to kill exactly, but also hard to kill, which is super weird to say. Zoe. I don't think Zoes are too difficult, but I think they're harder than Talia for sure. Can be tough, but generally Zoe's not too bad. If you can dodge her sleep stun ability, you're golden. You're safe. Zyra, not a hard champion to kill, but she's kind of on the along the side of Heimer. I'd say Zyra might even be harder than Cassiopeia for sure. So F tier for her. Gwen is a fuck you champ. Oops. Gwen is 100% a fuck you champ. Hate going against her. Super strong. She can clip you down really easy. You can't throw your Q into her very easy because of her shroud. She has a lot of engage. She's a magic bruiser, I think. Not 100%. Bursty type champion. Can heal herself pretty good as well. She has like a dodge, so she can dodge out of your daggers, which is super annoying. Her ult, she can do 3 times and slow you, so she's like one of those like you just can't engage with that champion at all. Samira is kind of borderline Yasuo. What's up? I'm not 100% sure what Mom's plan is. I'll let you know. She's just at the store. Samira, she's kind of one of those champions where it's like you kind of gotta dance with her a little bit. Actually, you know what? I don't even know. I'm not gonna put her there. I'm gonna put her probably here because if I throw my Q, she can cancel, which means if I E and W, that's all I've got. She can, if I'm running away from her, she has the range to kill me. And then she can also proc something similar to me. She's a higher skill cap champion, but at the same time, you have to be able, depending on if you're one of those Samiras that can get their ults off quick or not, depends. So she's kind of like in the middle range at the moment. Nefiri is a tier. I would say probably in this zone. Nefiri is very bursty, very mobile, very difficult to hit because of his minion dogs that he has. His ult and his engaging capability is really strong. Super frustrating champion to deal with. Can hop over walls. Just very, very, very hard. And also, if they land their Q does just a ton of damage. I don't like going against the Furies, but mainly it's because of the freaking dogs that continuously spawn. You can kill them both, and they'll just spawn in like 2 seconds. Super frustrating, super annoying. Wei, I would say, is probably in the same line as Syndra. a lot of abilities. This guy, he can fear me out of my dagger. He can fear me out of my ult. He can put up a shield. He can frickin' make himself move quicker. He can hit you from outside of the map, and then he can stack his abilities, which will proc like this fucking extra damage on top of you and slow you. His ult slows, has a huge range. He's just, he can be a pain in the ass for sure. Is he more annoying than Kiana? Honestly, I think Kiana is less annoying. I would actually even consider Lucian and Samira maybe a little less. No. Is Lucian more annoying than Syndra? I honestly don't think Lucian. No, Lucian. Man. This is tough. I feel like this is fairly close. What do we got? We got Aurora. I would probably consider Aurora a D tier. And specifically because, like, she doesn't trap me in her little bubble thing necessarily. But she's a difficult kind of champion to do well with. I don't really face her too often as a Katarina off the top of my head. But she can go invisible, and going invisible makes it so that I might cancel my Q. She has like a knockback, and the more time she hits you, it does more burst damage or some shit. I'd say either a low D or a high E. Maybe more like this. Maybe a low E. Something like that. I think a low E is a good placeholder for her. Hey, okay, so we got one more champion. We got Ambiza. And I have not actually gone against this champion a whole lot. I would imagine because she has 3 dodges. Maybe she has like a slam, I think, and like a cone. I don't know. I don't think she's going to be horrible to deal with. I kind of feel like she's kind of in this zone of like maybe a little difficult, but you can do a dance with her. I actually might, I'm really tempted to bump up Syndra to like here. And maybe Hui too. I would say something like that feels a little bit more realistic. And I'm not really going to say Katarina because you don't really go against the same champions. But yeah, you guys, this is my tier list for the most difficult champions to play against as a Katarina. Let me know if you guys agree with it. I actually think it's a pretty good list. I totally agree with this. If there's something that you would change, let me know. If there's something you agree with, let me know. I don't know. I really like how this list turned out. I think it makes a lot of sense. I feel like I explained thoroughly why. And if I didn't, I'm sorry. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to see more tier lists, let me know in the comments. If there's one that you would like me to do, if it's like an anime list, you can always make one up for me as well. If it's an anime list, or a cartoon list, or a video game list, or I don't know. I wouldn't say music because like I'm not super familiar with like bands and stuff like that. But if there's something that you want me to do a tier list on, let me know. If it's League of Legends related, I could do a tier list on that. Bot lane, top lane, you know, good, bad, whatever, favorite champions, that kind of stuff. It's up to you guys, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace.